Hey, Steve Magnante here at High-Octane Classics in Auburn, Massachusetts, with a High-Octane Classics pony car walk-around. Don't call this Mustang a muscle car because it's a six-cylinder car. It was. More on that in a second. Now keep in mind that these are called pony cars, the market segment, because of the Mustang being a pony reference, the name, and Firebirds and Camaros and Barracudas and Challengers also are known as pony cars, but the Mustang was the first pony car in America, debuting in April of 1964 as a 1965 model year car. For 66, the popularity had exploded. A total of 607,568 Mustangs were sold in 1966. Sales that exceeded anybody's expectations, especially Lee Iacocca and the Ford Motor Corporation, which was thrilled with the gamble they took on the Mustang, which basically is a Ford Falcon with a really nice body on it. Speaking of Ford Falcons, this one here is kind of an unusual car. 4-lug wheels, front and rear. What's up with that? Well, that's because this car is a T code, or it was. That means 200 cubic inch six-cylinder engine, which was the base engine in Mustang. You could order up to the 289 with two-barrel or four-barrel carburation, but they would have a 5-lug wheel and 10-inch drums. These 4-lug wheels here would have had a 9-inch drum, and again, they're interesting to look at, but they catch you up by surprise, because most Mustangs have 5-lug wheels unless you have a 6-cylinder car, and that's all about the T in the 5th spot. Now, the price of this car when it was new, the base car, a base convertible, would have been $2,653, which was $250 more than a Mustang coupe. These are far more popular. The coupes were far more popular than the convertibles for good reason, because most people want a weather-tight car, and a convertible is not really that practical in New England or where there's a whole lot of heat to contend with. But again, this is a nice example of a daily driver quality 66 Mustang. Let's look at the front fenders. You see 289. Let's open that hood and see what's really under the hood. Before I open the hood, let's take a look at why the Mustang is called a pony car. Of course, this is the iconic running horse icon right here. George Oros, I believe was his name, he was the designer of this, and they asked him, why is it running from right to left? Well, because horse racing is a counterclockwise sport here in America. Thus, the horse must be running from right to left, as we see here on the grill. The first Mustang, the first pony car right here. This is 1966, second year for the mighty dynasty of the Mustang. Let's open the hood and see what we have. Okay, now that is not a 6-cylinder engine. That's a 289 small block Ford V8 that was added to the car at some point in its life, and that's not a bad thing. The 200 cube six-banger is kind of a boring engine, and especially in something a little heavier, like a convertible Mustang, it would make it kind of a slow vehicle. The V8 perks it up pretty good. Now, speaking of convertibles, this structure here, these two tubes going from the radiator wall area to the firewall, these are specific to the convertible only, and what they do is they help to stiffen the cowl. Something you have in convertibles is a thing called cowl shake, where the dashboard and stuff starts to move out of harmony with the rest of the car. These restore rigidity, and also if we could lift this car up, we would see a plate steel structure bolted to the bottom side of the floor. The drive shaft goes atop on that, and that's basically a plate found only on convertibles like these tubes right here to restore rigidity to the roofless convertible body style. Now, if this were a coupe, you wouldn't see those. But anyway, here's the little V8 engine. Good engine, nothing wrong with that. Probably 200 horsepower, 2-barrel carburetor, chugging away right there. And here's the T on the VIN. Now, the VINs are also on the door, but this is the stamped-in code right there on the inner fender. T4 6-cylinder engine. If you see an A, it's a 289 4-barrel, a C, a 289 2-barrel, or a K is a 289 4-barrel high-performance engine, but the T is the bottom of the barrel. Nothing wrong with that. And these 4-lug wheels are kind of unique. The 6-cylinder car's got a 13-inch wheel. These are reproductions by Scott Drake Restorations. These are 14-inch 4-lug wheels. People would have been very happy to have these things back in the 60s. Now they're very readily available. They take a 14-inch radial tire, not the 13s this would have had with 6-cylinder suspension and 4-lug wheels front and rear. You kind of be stuck with that stuff. But these are modern things that make the car even better. Let's look inside. Now, we all know the story about how Lee Iacocca, who was an executive at Ford, was kind of the father of the Mustang, and he really was good at maximizing platforms to become more than they were born to be. The Ford Falcon is the underpinning of the Mustang, but the Falcon underpinnings are shared with the Mustang, but the Mustang is a much sexier body, a much more exciting body, and these things sold amazingly well. 607,568 of these were built in 1966, of which only 72,119 were convertibles. The vast majority were coupes. With that said, these were very popular cars then as now. They used to say that hotcakes are selling like Mustangs, if that makes sense, and it sure does. They made lots of money on these cars. But again, by keeping the Falcon running gear and inner structures Ford saved a bunch of money. Now inside we'll see here, most people think that Mustangs all have bucket seats. That's not true. This is the standard front bench seat. You can fold it back like this to go into the back seat area for access, but this center section folds down. Chrysler had a similar deal on some of their cars, but again, the bench seat up front is standard fare. You paid extra for the bucket seats. Same thing with a console if you wanted to have that. This is kind of weird. It's a floor shift car. It's a 3-speed manual. A 4-speed was possible. There's a thing called the Dagenham British-built 4-speed in 6-cylinder cars, believe it or not. Also the T10 and the Ford top loader were also possible. This is basically a 3-speed manual transmission, perhaps the original 3-speed from the 6-cylinder. It's up to the job unless you go drag racing and abuse it. But again, the floor shift is cool. Never was there a Mustang with a column shifted transmission. There were always sporty floor shifted cars, automatic or stick shift. Now the nice thing about the convertible is that the top goes down. The bad thing about the convertible is that the back seat's narrower than it would be on a coupe. The fastback and the convertible have a narrower rear seat. It only seats 3 people in comfort unless you're really good friends or quite small. But here again, the narrower back seat on the convertible and on the 2+2 fastback was a minor point of contention with people who bought these cars. Now most of these were bought by people who were single or had young families and didn't mind the minimal back seat. So with that said, let's take a look inside the trunk. Now Ford knew that most people who bought Mustangs didn't have a second car, or if they did, they were lucky. With that in mind, they designed the Mustang with plenty of cargo capacity and what we would call a commodious trunk on the Barrett-Jackson auction block, and there you have it. A good sized trunk right here. You could plenty of groceries in there and all kinds of stuff would fit in there, whereas on a 2+2, you would have far less fastback impeded room for cargo. Now on the steel wheel on the right hand side, we can see right there, that's one of the 4-lug factory wheels on this puppy right here, 4 lugs right here. And there's an optional 14-inch 4-lug wheel. I think this might be one of them. 14, okay, that's a pretty unusual wheel. It's a 14-inch 4-lug. So if you're looking to restore your 6-cylinder Mustang 10/10ths, you need those wheels times 4, actually 5, the spare and the 4 on the car. But if you ask me, I'll take the aluminum wheels any day. But again, pretty weird to see a 14-inch. That was an optional thing. Standard wheel in this thing would be a 13-inch with 4 lugs, kind of a weird unicorn of a wheel. But anyway, big trunk right here, room for plenty of stuff. And one thing too that was new for 1966, all Mustangs from 64.5 on had this cool centrally located gas filler. But in 64.5 and 5, people would take these things and put them in their pocket, and the Midnight Auto Supply loved them because 66 was no longer possible. This strap right here, which does not come off, prevented people from snagging these things in the wee hours of the dark and making them into necklaces or whatever other things people would want to use these for. So here we have it right here. Again, the pony, they're running from right to left, clockwise, counterclockwise, like on championship racetracks for horses, Santa Anita, etc., etc. Here it is right here. Once again, Ford was brilliant at their branding. And notice how the Ford is black, the Mustang is an exciting red in the dropouts on the die-cast emblem. And you can see right there, just brilliant marketing and branding. And basically simple things made very cool with just a little bit of change of color. As we make our way from the tail of this pony up toward the snout, we can identify and enjoy the side strakes right here and the incuse area right here, the side cove, which has been a Mustang trademark for years. And in fact, echoes of that continue to this very day on the side of Mustangs that are built. And again, it's not functional, doesn't do anything at all, but it helps to sell cars. If we get to the front of the car, we can see again, nice long hood, short deck proportions. That was the whole classic pony car thing. Long hood to emphasize power, or the impression of power, and a short deck to emphasize sportiness and compactness. With that said, you have all of those things rolled into one. Again, this is born a 6-cylinder car with a 3-speed manual on the floor, and it's been upgraded with a V8. I dare say that in stock trim, this would have been not a yawn to drive, but the 289 V8 would perk this thing up and make it much more fun to drive. To learn more about this car, check out the pictures on the High-Octane Classics website.